You, sir.
Am I wrong in believing that Labour, for 12.5 years of a 13-year government, had the higher tax rate at 40%? Is that not true? And now you're trying to be.
Why did you only have 40%?
Now you're trying to be the poor man's best friend.
Yeah. Look, I was on the backbenchers then, and I used to put alternative budgets up every year. Let me finish. I used to put up alternative budgets every year, and in that was included a 50p rate.
There you are,
and the argument then was that struck the right balance. And the point that this gentleman made about we're all going to have to pay more taxes. The issue for most people is people don't jib against paying taxes if they think the system is fair. None of us now think the system is fair because we're seeing the wealthiest and the corporations laugh all the way to the bank by manipulating the tax system.
I'll just take a couple more, quick questions before we come to the end of the program. We've got another 10 minutes or so, and I think both these ones are worth taking. Alan King, first of all, please. Alan King.
When do we start to see Donald Trump as a serious politician?
When do we stop seeing Trump as a joke and see him as a serious politician? What do you think?
What? I don't know when we start seeing him as a serious human being. Look, we see him as a serious threat right now. And if by serious politician you mean serious threat to the entire world, then I say start thinking that now. The problem is there's nothing we can do about it. So, you know, it's that kind of impotent anxiety that isn't going to get us anywhere. It really irritates me because everybody says, you know, this is kind of populist politics, left-wing populism and right-wing populism are both the same. They're not the same. Left-wing populism looks like Bernie Sanders and wants a democratic socialist life where people have more and are happier. And right-wing populism looks like a guy who won't distance himself from the Ku Klux Klan. So, you know.
Do you agree with that, Dominic?
I think that stuff around the Ku Klux Klan and refusing to disavow them, it put him beyond the pale. I think that raised a serious question mark around his integrity. I think I'm also worried about what he might do. He's talking about building a wall, making the Mexicans pay for it, bringing back torture. But the thing is, whether you're a right-wing or a left-wing populist, you prey on the very seductive vulnerabilities of people. You come up with these populist utopian ideas, but you always, in the end, end up breaking your promises. And I think, in the end, the American people will be too smart to vote for that. I certainly hope so.
You're in the fourth row there, yes.
I think we need to look at the kind of anger that Donald Trump is harnessing, but I do agree with Zoe that we should actually consider him more of a threat. And we should be thinking about whether, if he is elected President of the United States, whether that is a man that in any way, shape or form we want to do any business with.
And the woman here in the second row.
Isn't part of the problem that we like democracy until the person who democracy elects isn't somebody that we would choose? And wouldn't somebody like President Assad or Mugabe argue that's why you don't have democracy, because you end up with a Trump?
Louise Bours, do you agree with her?
I've agreed with a couple of things the lady said this evening. Very insightful. Look, I mean, love him or loathe him, the people of the Republican Party, they keep voting through. And that is democracy. Just because we don't like him or find his views unpalatable, etc., etc., that really, as far as we're concerned, in Great Britain, has nothing to do with us. This election is the United States of America, and just as we don't want them interfering in our democratic process and elections over here, we really have no right to interfere in theirs. Now, whether he wins the nomination and goes forward to the presidential elections, we will have to wait and see. And then the American people can decide. But that's what democracy is all about. It doesn't matter whether we like him. It's what the American people want. And if they're going to vote for him, then they will have the government and the president that they deserve. And that's the important thing. Unless we want to have elections like in the European Union, where you're given a ballot paper, like when we were electing the president of the European Parliament, and we had one candidate, and all we had was yes on the ballot paper. So unless you want elections like that, Donald Trump, he is the Republican Party's choice at the moment.
Okay, man up there.
Are we going to be prepared for the migrant crisis from America?
I didn't quite hear that.
What was that?
Are we going to be prepared for the migrant crisis from
America? Right. And the man in pink there, I want to go to. Yes.
Very good.
It's okay, Zoe, saying that we shouldn't poke around in the politics of America and what Trump's doing, but it seems it's okay for us to poke around in the politics of the Middle East
It's not.
when the particular leader over there is going to do it.
All right. Jermaine, I'll come to you, John.
My point is, maybe we should poke around in the politics of the United States.
Jermaine.
I think it's very worrying to me that Donald Trump is getting so far within his political career. He comes across to me as a person that seems to thrive on people's insecurities and weaknesses. And I just think, it's easy for us to say, right, it's not our country and let's not get involved. But at some point, we're going to have to deal with America over certain subjects. So do I want that to be Donald Trump? No, I do not.
We have no choice, though.
Well,
we have no choice. It's their choice. It's their choice.
It is their choice, obviously, but that's why I'm saying it's so worrying to me that he's getting so far down the line.
Yeah, nobody's suggesting we intervene in America, Louise. We're just saying it's a bad thing, right?
And I'll come to you, John. You sit in the white T-shirt.
If he becomes president, what then?
All right, hold on. You.
I think the biggest fear for me, I think you're absolutely right, it's America's issue, this. Bigger fear for me is if Jeremy and John's ragtag bunch of socialists get into number 10.
I'd agree with that, sir.
John Mcdonnell, maybe you want to answer him.
Thanks for that. Look, I think we've got to take Trump seriously, and I think I find it extremely worrying about some of the statements that he's made, the instability that he will cause within his own country, and the instability that he could cause globally. It's not interfering in American politics. It's completely, of course, up to the American people. But as friends of the American people, our closest ally, I think as friends we should express our caution and concern about it, that this is someone who actually could damage international relations overall.
So why is he so appealing to the Republican voters?
I think there's a real... within America itself, there's a real disaffection about the system overall, about how large numbers of people now have had their wages suppressed, the public services are collapsing, and if you look at the opinion polls, there's real anger out there, and they're seizing upon Trump as an opportunity to protest against the system itself. Now, I'm hoping that as the debate goes on, the more exposed that he becomes, actually, that people will then say this is not for us, and that there'll be a vote for a candidate who actually will represent all of America rather than one small section. But I think we do have the opportunity as friends of America to actually say this could be damaging to us all. And please think carefully.
Okay, last point from you, man.
All I have to say is that really, that's why I'd really prefer to stay in Europe, because imagine Donald Trump with Putin, and they're the superpowers, aren't they? And there you have a very unsafe planet, really.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. We'll take a last question from James Yates, please. James Yates.
Should tackling in rugby be banned in schools?
You write about medicine yourself, do you?
Yeah, well, just started.
What? You've just started,
yeah.
So you know about this issue. Okay.
Not really.
Should tackling in rugby be banned in schools? We know that there's a policy to get millions more children playing rugby. Jermaine, you would know about this.
I mean, initially when you hear that statement, you feel like saying, well, it would be almost like banning shooting from playing football. You know, if you're playing football, like kids aren't allowed to shoot no more.
Yeah, I thought you meant something quite different.
Well, it is. It's like
shooting.
Oh yeah, sorry. yeah.
Which is not very good.
Took that, yeah, wrong way. But no, it's almost like saying to a young footballer, you can't shoot at goal no more. And I just think that rugby, part of it is tackling. And granted, the injuries that can be sustained aren't great. And what I think we should do is, when I was at school, there was parts where you was on the school field and someone would have a shot, probably somebody who wasn't very good, and it would usually hit somebody in the face and they'd have a bloody nose everywhere. So what they made us do was start playing with a sponge football or a really smaller football. But I think rugby, I'm sure these do what they can do with American football. You can play tag, have a flag hanging out of your shorts, and they can take that off, or start wearing protective gear. And then as you get older, the layers of protective gear
So you would like
off.
that to happen? You don't want 16, 17, 18-year-olds tackling each other and...
I think it's important that we obviously don't end up with 16, 17-year-olds who have got major issues through getting concussion through early stages of their career. So yeah, I think I would like to see some type of protective gear for these youngsters to wear until they get to that professional stage.
Dominic Raab, we have to go quickly around the table on this. Is an issue? 70 doctors and scientists called for this ban.
No. I think we should try and make all these contact sports a bit safer, but I don't think we should be banning them. We need to be encouraging youngsters to do more sport. It's good for their health. It's also good for other life skills. Okay, very quickly. We have the same debate around boxing. I'm a trustee of Fight for Peace in Newham, and it gets a lot of youngsters very difficult to reach into the club to do the competitive martial arts or boxing, but then it also works on their numeracy, their literacy. I got involved mentoring, and all I'm saying is that these kind of sports have got a potential and a power to reach certain youngsters, particularly from tough backgrounds, that nothing else does. Right. So let's not get rid of that.
We have to be very brief. I don't know.
Please, most likely to be brief.
Yes, you can be
No, so
briefer.
I remember interviewing the academic who did this research when she first started it. She's a massive public health epidemiologist, and I was like, what do you want to do rugby for? It's just a weird thing that posh people play. And she said, you've got no idea how dangerous this is. If you knew how dangerous it was and how often people are brain damaged by it, there's no way you would let your children anywhere near it. And I just think all these kind of arguments, oh, it's really good for you to get into the fresh air. You don't need to get a concussion in the fresh air. There are loads of ways to get fit, not concussing yourself.
But it shouldn't be left to parents, not government to decide.
I think if parents knew how dangerous it was, then they would vote with their feet.
John,
There's no way parents...
Can I ask you in a phrase to say whether the rugby tackling should be banned?
I think we need to take into account what the doctors are now warning us, and I think on Jermaine's point, you change the techniques, you look at enhanced protections. In that way, you preserve the sport, but you don't have the risk as well.
Louise?
The benefits outweigh the risks, in my opinion. It teaches our kids teammanship, competitiveness, discipline, respect. I think all team games are very positive. And remember, we want to tackle childhood obesity. It's one of the, that will be a big killer, far bigger killer to our kids than injuries within sport. So let's support it.
1 point from our audience. Somebody hasn't spoken before. Yes.
I appreciate and understand what the whole panel have said. However, with many things within school, why aren't the children being asked what they think?
Yeah.
Thank you very much, everybody. We've got to stop.